you can't separate Apple from China at this point, especially when talking about free speech in the context of Twitter and Elon Musk. The problems with Apple was that they were talking about the factory in which they make 80% of the latest base models for the iPhone 14, over 80% of the high-end Pro models, and their economy is on the cusp of disaster. They had 6 million people in and around that iPhone factory under a 5-day lockdown in Beijing, and off and on with different industries locked down. Morgan Stanley had predicted that they're not going to be shipping anything out of that factory for the remainder of the year. Reuters says 50% of Apple's suppliers are in China. Apple relies on China to an egregious extent. I mean, it's not only their base manufacturing, but and I know that they have taken steps to try to repatriate some of that and to relocate some of it to India. But still, as is, the significant chunk of their manufacturing, I mean, it's a critical site. And it's also a huge market. Apple in China generated 15.5 billion sales. So that's a huge, they don't want to lose that. They don't want to lose that market. I mean, you can't sit here and say that you're, a good corporate citizen and a good corporate partner and turn a blind eye to what's been happening over there. And there was let me pull this up. This was in Time magazine. And this was back in October of 2019. Apple removed Hong Kong protesters' crowdsourced police tracking map from the App Store at the request of the Chinese government. I mean, the CCP wanted it removed, and they were facing some backlash because they hadn't at that point. And so this was all during the Hong Kong protests. It was the app called hkmap.live. The creators, that was their site, and they confirmed that it was delisted. They told this to Time in a statement. And Apple said, well, it was used to ambush the police and endanger citizens. But there's no evidence that police were ambushed or that anyone was endangered. But there was tons of evidence on video of police going after citizenry and beating them in the street and arresting them and throwing them into the back of vans. I mean, that's nuts. They said, the app displays police locations. What were the police doing? They were enforcing brutal responses to free speech demonstrations in Hong Kong. The app didn't promote any kind of criminal activity. Here's the problem with the issue of China, because it's easy to say, and it's very easy to criticize all these people that enable them. It's easy to criticize the NBA, their expansion teams. It's easy to criticize Disney for wanting to kowtow to the market and also using their labor up in the Xinjiang province with the Uyghurs. It's easy to criticize all these, but you know what? And we have to very uncomfortably all indict ourselves. Do you actually look on the back of things that you purchase to see where it's made? I mean, Kane can tell you, I try to go to a hilarious extent and as much as possible try to avoid buying anything manufactured in China. Sure. If I find something that's made in Taiwan, I'm like, yeah. It's so difficult though. Have you tried? I mean, it's so incredibly difficult. Case in point. You know those because it's starting to now finally get chilly in Texas. So I was looking at what are they, sweater shedder tools, just to get the fuzzy sheds off sweaters. You know how hard it is to find something that's not manufactured in China? For little things like that, you'll lose hours of your life trying to avoid purchasing things manufactured in China. And the way that we do business here hasn't made it easy. We have some of the highest business taxes in the world. And people act like they're shocked. They vote for the people who implement them. And then they act like they're shocked when manufacturing is outsourced. I mean, what did you think was going to happen? There's cause and effect. So we can do all these things. We can have, the NBA stop what they're doing and Disney stop what they're doing. But do you know the biggest, if we were going to look at every individual as one singular entity, the biggest corporate interest is the people who are dependent upon cheap manufacturing, and cheap goods. That is the biggest, singular, biggest corporate entity, is we the people.